All right. Hey, everybody. Happy Thursday. I guess I can say that. I mean, it is definitely, I don't know, it's been a week. And I know that this is probably not the first or second time that we all have said that here in 2020. It's still 2020 though, right? We still got a couple of months to go, and so here we are. The bright and shiny part, though, is that I get to come and chat with you guys each and every week on Thursdays at 1 o'clock, and we've been having some great dialogue, guys. So I just first want to say thank you all for those of you who tune in each week and take the time to contribute to the conversation and the dialogue that happens here every week. I don't take that for granted because I know that there are so many other things that we have on our plates right now, from our children to our family life to, just our professional careers, and just a lot of things that we have going on right now. So the fact that you choose to come and partake and hopefully take away some things as well is definitely by choice, and I appreciate that. So I'm excited though, because of course I'm bringing you another dynamic woman in business, mompreneur, and she is someone who I've known for a while. I actually had the honor and the pleasure of being her wedding coordinator back in the day. That we were just talking earlier, and I said, "Oh my God, Kristian, that's like a whole child ago." So, so I'm really excited to have her here with me, and so that we can jump into some dialogue today about the ABCs. And so we're going to be talking about our kids. This whole month of September, I've kind of focused the conversation around back to school, but really talking about how we as women, as moms, as professionals, how we're handling, this back to school era, because it looks so vastly different from what we have ever experienced before. But our kids are experiencing this too, and so I really wanted to take this week today to talk about how are our kids handling this. Because we can vocalize, we can have our conversations, our dialogue. But how are they internalizing this? And what are some of the things we're noticing with our kids, both verbal and nonverbal, right? So I brought Kristian today because she is the owner of the Resilient, and let me get it right now. I don't want to mess up the name. Resilient Child Therapy Institute. And so she is a professional and an expert in this arena as it relates to, really helping children kind of deal with the trauma and some of the emotional things that they go through when they experience some of these things. So Kristian, thank you for being here first and foremost.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, I'm like I said before, I'm excited to have you. And girl, it's been a long time, since we've had a chance to kind of sit down and chat. But wow, we really got to talk about our kids, and I don't want to steal the thunder, but we also got to talk about a little bit about how we're dealing through this too. We're coming off of a kind of an emotional last 24 hours, which it seems like, every couple of weeks we get this roller coaster of highs and lows, because of something else that has happened that has just really caused us to take a pause and look at what is happening out here. We just received the news about Breonna Taylor, and there being an indictment, but not because of her actual death. And so I know that, women, the Black community, we're feeling some kind of way. Um, and so let's just start right there. How are you absorbing that news? But then let's also dive into, our kids, and maybe how they're dealing with some of these things, just all the things right now, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know, I just take it one moment at a time. Sometimes I have to distance myself from the media, social media included, because I feel things so deeply. I don't think I would be in the profession that I'm in if I
I was about to
didn't,
say, that's what makes you good
if
at
I
what you do,
didn't,
though.
right, if I didn't feel, and didn't care. And I feel this. I was just sharing with a friend yesterday that like that indictment just hurt me to my core. And I had to step away from social media and just spend time with my family, and because it's just too much, and we're constantly seeing these things in the media over and over and over and over again, which can cause a trauma response in the body when you're constantly experiencing something that makes you feel as though you're not safe.
Yeah.
You're not safe, or your babies may not be safe, or your spouse. And so I have to disengage quite often.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I feel very much the same. Just knowing when to just step away. And to a degree, just really understanding that right now it's such a personal time, for many. It's like, yes, yes, we have to still live and thrive, but at the same time, this is such an inward time. Like you mentioned, just stepping away and going, spending time with family. I know I retreat to my family, my husband, my kids a lot, because that is my safe space. Like that is where I know that I am safe, right? And so I totally can identify with that, and I'm sure a lot of people can. And then you mentioned like just the stress of your body. Like I've been working out every morning because I'm like, I gotta release some of this so that it does not manifest.
That's right.
In my body, I wake up sometimes, I'm like, oh, why does my neck feel so stiff? And I know that is from me, like, clenching up when I am absorbing some of these things and feeling through some of these things, And so then that leads me to think, what about our babies? Like, what are they doing with all of this? I'm very blessed that my kids are, very young. So there is a naivety of not really knowing the full spectrum of everything that's going on out in this world. And to be honest, I'm grateful for that, but there's still a part of it that they full well understand. They get that, my 7-year-old is very smart, and he gets that like things are not the same. He's wondering, when am I going back to, as he quotes it, real school? He's like, Mom, this is not real school. He wants to know, like, when am I going back to real school? And then just the cautionary part of like when we do go out, I find myself like, don't touch this and don't touch that and put your mask on, and just very like apprehensive about things, because I'm trying to protect that mama bear. So what do you think about our babies right now? Part of me is like, is this gonna leave a lasting traumatic effect on them from just kind of being in this season right now? And then there's another part of me that's like, is this even traumatic for them? What are your thoughts on that?
It will. So as a mom and, as a therapist, child therapist specifically, that this is, it's absolutely impacting our babies. And I see that at home, and being a mom. And then I'm also seeing that in the children that I get the privilege to work with within my practice. And I do feel that it has the potential to cause some long-term effects.
Yeah.
But how we can
consider this trauma, like this pandemic, particularly this pandemic. I mean, definitely some of the racial stuff too, but particularly the pandemic. Do you consider this to be trauma for kids, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Trauma is anything that can cause stress to the body when we perceive, and our perception is based on our experiences and our genetic makeup. And so that how we perceive something can be very different from how someone else perceives something. But if we perceive that we're not safe, if we perceive that, something is not okay and it causes stress to the body, that is trauma.
Yeah.
And so, with the media and, a lot of discussion around, COVID-19 and, and these are very, real things that are happening around us, children can take that in, and it can cause, a trauma response, which could potentially cause some long-term effects. And so you can see that in your child if you notice a shift in their behaviors, if you notice an increase in disruptive behaviors, if you notice an uptick in tantrums or clinginess or for a lot of teenagers I work with, they're even more isolated because they don't have contact with their friends or their day-to-day life or their extracurricular activities that gave them balance. As well, because there is all this that's going on, it's impacting the family unit in general and mom and dad or parent relationships. So sometimes I've noticed that there's more tension between parents, which of course the kids are observing and absorbing. And so, you can sometimes see a shift in the child's behaviors. So sometimes some disruptive behaviors, you may see some changes in their sleep, their appetite, their social functioning, as well as their ability to pay attention and to focus. So, a lot of kids are not gravitating to this virtual schooling situation,
Right.
It's just not, our kids, that's
not how they're used to learning.
How they're used to learning. And then virtual schooling in and of itself can also be a trigger that can bring up anxiety when you have to see yourself on camera and you have to all of these things that of course the school systems didn't take into account, but because they just wanted to
jump right into
it and make sure we create normalcy as much as possible. And as a result of that, our kids, our families are experiencing this, how do I want to call it? Almost like this rush to create normalcy or to maintain safety. But it's a huge shift in the way that life was.
As we knew it, right? Like what we knew.
Yeah. And it was abrupt. It was an abrupt change, which is when something is abrupt and there isn't preparation and there is some level of stress associated with it, it has the potential to cause a traumatic response to the mind and the body.
Wow. Yeah, I know that, and again, just experiencing and seeing, my own kids, I know it took us, it's taken us a minute to kind of get in our groove. When school started back, I was like, okay, like, let me, first I was like, okay, let me do this schedule. I'm a planner at heart. So I'm like, let me get this schedule. We gonna do, this gonna be like this and this and this. And, I started realizing like, that's not going to work. Like, that is not going to work because it was stressing me out. It was stressing my kids out.
It's nice in theory.
We can't do that. Like, no, it's not time for that. What are we doing? And so then I had to adjust. I'm like, okay, well, maybe what we need to do is figure out what we can do. And then the things that we can't, like, let's just leave that to the side, And so there's been a lot of just kind of trial and error. Like, let's see what works today, and then let's see what works tomorrow. And also understanding, I just posted this the other day. I said, both of my kids need something different. They're different children, so they need something different. And my 3-year-old has to have flexibility. Like, he needs to be able to move when he wants to move. He needs to be able to feel through the learning. He needs to be, he can't just sit. And most kids don't want to sit for hours upon hours of time, so it's a lot of learning, I feel like, too, that both parents and children are doing right now is we're also learning through this, because we, like you said, we don't have the answer. Like, it wasn't like COVID hit and we had this playbook we go to and be like, okay, now what do I do now? So
Okay. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I think everything you're saying is so true. And that's the part that, like you said, the kids might be acting out or acting differently because they're experiencing this, this as well. Now, what are your thoughts on when they do or don't verbalize? I know kids, sometimes like you said, they might act outward. So then you see there are some changes happening with your child. Like, okay, they don't usually act like that, so something's going on. But then you have the different personalities of kids where some you're not gonna, they're not gonna act out. They're gonna harbor it or keep it close, right? What are some of the things that you recommend to parents, if they are trying to figure out, well, is my child, is this impacting them? Or, why am I seeing some of these things? Is that something I should be looking for? Things like that.
So the parent-child relationship is so key. And so knowing your child, like knowing your child enough to know when something isn't quite right.
Yeah.
And consistently. So, and when I say consistently, sometimes our kids have off days. Like, we have off days, there's some days we're just not quite ourselves, or we don't want to be bothered. We may be more snappy, especially with us being in COVID. And
that seems like a lot of days.
Right. And we don't have the same outlets that we once had prior to all of this. So we all may be on edge. But in having a relationship with your child, you're able to pick up on when something just isn't quite right. And so their child that is verbal, just simply ask, how, I like to always, I have a toddler, so she's not as verbal just yet. But I like to ask, how are you feeling in your body today? And that's better than just saying, how are you today? Because most kids would be like, I'm good. But I like to ask my clients, even my parents that I work with within my practice, how are you feeling in your body? When you look at this and you hear about, another injustice related to people of color, what does that feel like in your body? Where do you feel it the most in your body? What does it feel like? Is it tingly? Is it prickly? Is it, what does that feel like? And then opening up the conversation around, how to support. And so I am,
and because some of our babies are verbal, like, are old enough to express,
Yeah. And then,
so they're seeing this, like they're looking and seeing.
Yes. And they're also taking it in, not just through their eyes. So sight, we take in information through all of our senses, whether we're aware of it or not. So in this moment, we're having this interview. There's so many things going on around us, and our body is still taking in that information, whether we are consciously aware of it or not. And so children are very, especially, our babies, they're very intuitive and very much aware of what's going on, whether we recognize it or not, or acknowledge it or not. They're still taking it in. And so, even for our nonverbal children, just checking in with them and, offering opportunities for them to be able to process and to experience stress relief by going outside and taking walks. Allow your kid to play in the dirt, allow them to color, like all of those things that include the senses and the whole body, allowing them to do that. I love how there are some dance. I have a good friend of mine who is the owner of a studio. I'm gonna give her a little shout out. She is the owner of a studio in Fort Washington, Maryland, Dance Studio 5678. She is offering virtual dance classes. And I love that because children aren't able to go to the dance studio like they used to, or gymnastics or cheerleading, but she is offering that from the comfort of your home, the safety of your home. So things that allow a child to move their body, to engage their senses, because that helps to release stress from the body in a cathartic way and energetically.
Yes. I try to get my kids out to I'm like, let's go ride bikes, let's go for a run, like let's just get outside and like you said, move
Yeah.
so that they can release, again, just releasing some of that energy, releasing some of that, even if they're feeling, stressed or pent up,
Yep.
releasing some of that. So I love those suggestions, and I love the dance studio. Shout out to her because I love that. That is, and that's, I mean, that is something that I have enjoyed through this, this whole season, is seeing the innovation of
Yeah.
people, creating these outlets, even if it is virtually, it still is creating an outlet and doing it in a creative and innovative way
Yeah.
so that it can still serve our community, and still
Mhm.
serve our kids. And I just think
Mhm.
that's so important, but it's also ingenious.
Yeah,
Good,
yeah,
so good.
yeah.
So
It's
good. And yourself, you mentioned earlier, like, before this, you were mainly seeing people in person,
Mhm.
but now that's changed for you, right?
A whole lot, absolutely. So I was so averse to doing virtual anything, doing virtual therapy, especially with children. But
Yeah.
when this all happened and I needed to continue to run my practice and everything, I was like, well, I gotta let
Yeah.
me go ahead and do this. And
Right.
it's been awesome. And kids are so techie anyway that
Oh,
they
yes.
gravitated to
They
it.
learn so quick.
Oh, yeah. And I've been honestly, I feel like the therapy has become even better because I'm able to meet with them in their natural environments. And I'm
Right.
able to meet family members and pets. And so
Yes.
it's been
It's so much
so,
more personable.
yes. And kids
Yeah.
are making progress even quicker because it's happening, at home,
That's so
where things happen. And
Yeah.
so it has been a blessing in disguise. And then we just recently decided to start seeing some clients, so a select few of clients in the office that probably aren't the best candidates for in-person therapy.
Sure.
But like now we're offering both in-person and virtual, and I'm able to reach people that probably could not access these, this
Before.
resource.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's been awesome.
That's so good. That's so good. Those are the stories and the things that make my heart feel good, because I'm like, at least, there are some, I always say, you got the clouds, but then you got to find the silver lining. So those are the silver linings amongst the clouds. So
Yeah, it's definitely been that.
that's such a good thing. So let's talk about these ABCs, adjusting, breathing. I was reading an article, and that's kind of where I pulled this from. But adjusting, breathing, and coping. I know I'm reading all the time and listening to podcasts all the time. I feel like that is literally my new world. Because I can multitask, right? If I got
Yeah,
my
yeah.
earbuds in and I'm
Uh-huh.
floating around the house doing stuff, but I can still listen. So I'm like, it has opened up a whole new world.
Yeah, but I mean, there's some good stuff out there.
It
So,
really is. It really is. So I'm like, let me take advantage. But I was reading one of my Audible books, and it said adjusting, breathing, and coping
hmm
are ways to kind of for kids to work their way through some of their feelings, things that they might be dealing with. And so I wanted to kind of bring that to you and see what are some ways, like with the adjusting, with the breathing, with the coping, how do they help? How particularly do they help kids? How does it help kids to deal with their feelings, or to, sort through them, or find healthy ways to, make sure that they're dealing with these things the right way, or not the right way, but again, the healthy way, right?
hmm
Instead of something that could be, detrimental to them.
hmm
So what are your thoughts around just adjusting, breathing, and coping? Like, is there anything that it brings up for you about some of the ways in which you also, work with some of your clients, or what are your thoughts on that?
Um, so so I am in working with children. I use play therapy, play and expressive art therapy. We're actually in my office. Why you took a picture?
Yeah, I was about to say, I was like, I see
I got
the picture
all
there.
this
Oh,
stuff here. Yeah.
nice.
So I incorporate play and expressive art therapy in my work with children because play is their natural way of communicating. I never have to get a kid to play. Same thing with adults too. I think we are so far removed from being playful and being creative, but that is where the magic happens.
It
That's
is,
where
right.
it happens, you
When
know.
you're enjoying something, like I think about
Yes,
joy, right? When you're enjoying
yes,
something.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. So, I think incorporating adjustment, breathing, and coping in creative ways
Mm.
that kids gravitate to is, I think, to me, the best way, and just from my experience, both as a
Yeah.
mom and as a therapist. My daughter is almost 2 years old, very, very expressive, very assertive. She challenges every single one of my therapeutic skills, but it's okay. It's okay.
You know what? And that was actually going to be my next question: is how you separate. You know, do you even
Don't
separate?
separate it. I don't separate it because this is me. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a mom, I'm a therapist, I'm a wife, I'm a play therapist, I'm so many things,
Yeah.
but all those
All
things
that.
allow me to show up as mom, and my clinical training supports my ability to be, I think a competent mother to her,
Yeah.
and then also learning how to be just responsive to who she is and not expecting her to be something different from who she
Right.
is, because she's very assertive and I love it, and very expressive, and I don't hinder that. Like, I want her to be as loud as she wants to be, because
I
that's
love
who
it.
she
You're like,
is.
girl, go
That is,
out there and
yeah,
just
say what you gotta say,
use
girl.
your voice.
Do you. And so, because she's very expressive as a child, I allow her to, I teach coping skills already to my almost 2-year-old in
Mm.
a very expressive way, because that is who she is by personality. And so we've started incorporating sound healing and meditation before bedtime for her.
Oh,
She's
wow.
not 2 yet, but that is how we start to build emotional intelligence. It just like how we teach ABCs and numbers and shapes and all of that. We also have to teach kids self-regulation. That's not something they just learn automatically. It's
Right.
taught, or we model it to them. And so she sees me meditate. She sees me taking a deep breath when she takes me to 100. And before I respond,
Girl, they do it.
yes. And then I'm also teaching her the same thing too, even if she doesn't get it completely. It's creating the space for her to begin to implement those things, to begin to cope, to begin to breathe, and to notice her body when it's going from a 0 to 100.
Oh, that's so
To
good.
be able to adjust, because things happen just like that. And so we have to be able to shift, as things occur around us. And so I'm already teaching her that now at almost 2 years old. And we do it in very creative ways. I like to incorporate music with her. We sing stuff.
Yes, we love
She's starting to,
musical. Yeah.
her motor skills are starting to become even more developed. So we like to color.
Yeah.
Haven't quite gotten to Play-Doh yet, because she still puts things in her mouth and she's
Okay.
Play-Doh is a really good
Like,
sensory.
don't eat the Play-Doh, baby.
But I can't wait till she gets to the point where she can play with Play-Doh and like
Yeah.
manipulate things without putting it in her mouth and it becoming a choking hazard.
Mm-hmm.
But and just being in tune to who she is and her age. I like to incorporate just little playful, creative things to self-regulation.
That's so good. It takes me back to a time when my oldest was 2, and he would get so upset about, like he was always one of these kids who you had to kind of talk him through things. Even before he could talk, you had to talk him through things because he could understand before he could talk.
Yep.
So he could understand exactly what you were telling him before he could say a word. And so if you cut something out, like let's say he was, we're at the playground and I haven't given him a warning. I'm like, oh, we gotta go. He would fly off that. I mean, he would have a fit, flailing around, throwing his head. I mean, just tantrum to like you said, going to 100 in like 2 seconds flat. What is happening right now, But he didn't know how, he couldn't express himself verbally yet. So that was the only way he knew how to express himself.
That's right.
That he understood, And so it took me to understand, like, okay, I've got to start to give him a warning and talk him through, what's about to happen, that when it happens, he can work through it. He's like, okay, I've already got my mind there
Yep.
because I knew that's what was
Mhm.
about to happen,
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so now, girl, fast forward, I'm like, now, of course, he can talk, right? So now it's like, well, why do we have to, But, but it's still that same process. I still have to
Uh-huh.
be like, okay, this is what we are going to do,
Yeah.
right? So that he's prepared. So I love that that you said that, because I'm like, it is the expressive, the expressiveness, and them being able to understand how to express in all those different variables and ways that they play, and that's the coping part, because
Right.
like I said,
Right.
once we talked him through it, he's like, okay, like we didn't see all that,
Yeah.
final
Yeah. Yeah.
anymore.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's so good. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I was like, we gonna call you, we're gonna put you on speed. When we're seeing these things, like, okay, Kristian, is this normal?
I always tell, when I'm working with families and parents, I always, to help them to understand the experience of a child, because
Mhm.
I think once you become an adult, like we're so far from removed from childhood, like we forget what it's like to be a kid.
Yes,
And
which I think is a bad thing.
yeah,
I do.
yeah. Like we forget, even when
Yeah,
we have children, like we forget what it's like to be a child.
yeah.
And I see childhood as a culture. And if we
Mm,
want to understand it, we have to be willing to learn. We have to
yeah,
be willing to learn our children's behaviors, their
mm,
experiences, just like we would if we were to plan a trip to another country. We learn about the culture before we go
yeah.
there, right?
Before we
And so
go,
the
yeah.
same thing, yeah, the same thing is so with our children. Um, and so when I'm working with parents, I always talk about that. And, I bring up, if the shoe were on the other foot and it were you, and you were engaged in something that you enjoyed and, you didn't want to leave, how would it feel if someone just said, okay, it's time to go?
Right.
I would be ticked off, like, wait a minute, I didn't finish my picture.
Right.
I didn't finish this meal. I didn't finish my bubble bath. Like, what do you mean it's over?
Right.
But but because we are adults, most, high functioning, healthy adults, like we won't throw a tantrum,
Yeah.
but some of us have adult tantrum. That's okay.
Right.
We are.
I'm
Um,
going to say maybe in our head, we would,
you know,
some of us be talking, that's what people out in our head. I can't be,
Right, right. But we have the tools as adults, for the most part, to self-regulate and to make
mm,
whatever transition we need to make. But children don't come knowing how to self-regulate.
right.
And as parents, our job is to mutually support our children in helping them to regulate. And so it's a partnered experience. They learn to regulate by watching us, and us showing them what it's like to self-regulate.
Right.
And then we can teach by showing them, or like I said, by doing it as well.
Yes, that's
So
so
it's a
good.
mutual thing. It's
Yeah.
because, I'm also thinking about, like, even to the point where, like, when we have our children as newborns, like we help them to self-soothe. Like, we
Mm,
rock them, we do skin to skin. We're not
yes.
too far removed from that, even when they're like 7, 8, 9, 10, even as a teenager, and they don't want to be bothered with us. There's still
Right.
a joint experience that happens as it relates to self-regulation.
Yeah, yeah. Because even teenagers have their moments where they're just like, okay, all I want is my mom, or I just want to talk to my dad, or and they have these moments where you can kind of see them kind of taking on that childlike,
Yeah.
that childlike stance again, because it's kind of whatever's going on with them is kind of bringing them back to that space of vulnerability,
Mhm.
even though they're asserting themselves as well.
Yeah, but
Oh,
it's all about, it's the willingness to connect with your child, to connect and
yeah,
understand,
yeah,
and then to teach through practice and
yeah.
modeling, and then also allow for mess ups to happen. Like, mistakes are going to happen. Our
Mhm.
children are not perfect. They're going to be
Especially
days
right
where,
now. Especially
absolutely,
right now.
allowing more, not to say to allow them to get away with anything, like,
Yeah,
yes, still maintain boundaries and expectations, but understand that we're experiencing collective trauma right now.
yeah.
And as people of color, like,
Mhm.
it's compounded with some of this racial upheaval that's going
Yeah.
on too, that our children are also witnessing and
Right,
experiencing.
experiencing. Yes.
So we
Yes.
have to allow space
Mm-hmm.
for children to be children, for them to be people, humans. They're
Yeah.
going to make mistakes, just like we
Mm-hmm.
make mistakes.
Yes.
But mistakes are an opportunity to teach.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, it's an opportunity to teach.
Yeah. No, I totally I totally embrace that.
Mhm.
And it's so funny because one of my learning moments, and I feel like, I feel like our kids also teach us, right? Like
Oh,
they
yeah.
are constantly teaching us just like
Mhm.
we're teaching them as the parents. Um and one of my learning moments came with my son being on, he was in class, and I was correcting his behavior because he was not doing something he was supposed to,
Mhm.
and so I said, hey, are you doing your very best right now? Or I said something to that effect or whatever, and I said, is that how you're supposed to be doing that? And so I saw this look of like, how could you, like, come over his face? And I'm like, what? And so he didn't say anything right away, but later that day he said, Mommy, I wasn't on mute when you said that. So all my friends heard you, and that was embarrassing. And I was just
Oh.
oh, so I'm like, oh my God. Okay. I didn't, in the moment, I will be honest, I was just like, wait a minute. Am I am I correcting him? Was he correcting me? I was so caught off guard. But it was, as much as it was a learning moment for him, it was a learning moment for me too.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just,
You gotta fall
you can't
back,
just do
Mom.
your parenting whenever you want to. You need to make sure it's in a safe space.
You gotta fall back. And kudos to him for just communicating like his feelings and what
Yeah.
he needed from you.
At
And
that
then
moment.
also, and then your ability to recognize that something wasn't right, He
Right.
wasn't being disrespectful. He was like, Mom.
Right. Like, what are you doing right now? It was just like that look of, I can't believe you.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man,
So
kids are
yeah.
phenomenal.
Yeah, so that's what I say, we're all learning. Like, we really are. I feel like
Yeah.
that is what this season and this time right now is
Mhm.
doing for us and our kids. It
Yeah.
is teaching us to adapt. It is teaching us to, breathe through things. Cause I had to breathe through it. Like, okay, I
Mhm.
can't be upset and be like, you can't talk to me like that. I'm the mom. And then learn how to cope, with our feelings. So
Right.
I will say, if there's one thing you can piece of advice that's, most valuable to parents out there right now who are trying to, you know, make those adjustments or figure out, kind of what might be going on with their kids, or just how to handle some of these situations as they come, because I know that we're all still figuring it out. It's not like a one and done. It's not like, oh,
Mhm.
I got it today, so we're good, we can check the box. I
Yeah.
mean, like, literally, it seems like every day presents something different that we have to think through, like, oh, okay, wait, that's how we would have done it, but okay, not today, right?
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
in this situation. So what
Right.
would be, like, one piece of advice that you would give to parents out there about kind of how to make sure that them and their kids or their children can work their way through this time frame right now?
Yeah, yeah. I always tell parents, I'm all about like empowering parents to,
Mm.
there's a lot of parent shame out here, like where we shame parents and how they parent and how
Isn't
they
that the truth? Where
I
did
feel
that
like I experience more
come from?
shame now than I've ever experienced in my life now that I'm a mom. And I know child development like the back of my hand. Like not that I know everything, but I know a lot.
Yeah.
But I'm still shamed in terms of how I parent and what I do, but whatever. But
It's like, I
you
know,
know,
right?
like and so I say that all to say that you know, I always remind parents that you are the expert of your child.
That's
You're the
definitely,
expert. You
yeah.
know, when parents bring their children to me, by the time they come to me, it's because they feel like they've done everything and
Mhm.
they are maxed out and they're
Mm.
just like, you know, fix them. And I don't believe children are broken, so I never respond to that. Like, your
Subscribe
kid
to
doesn't
that.
need to be
Yes.
fixed,
Agreed.
you know. And it's about rebuilding that esteem in the parent. And so
Mhm.
I would say you are the expert of your child, and there will be days where you don't get it right. That's gonna happen. There are days
Yeah.
I don't get it right, you
Yeah.
know, more days than you know than there should be, because we're in the pandemic and I'm exhausted sometimes
Yeah.
and burned out. But you know, if that is the case, and that's when I check myself and I'm like, okay, why am I a little more short with my daughter right now?
Right.
You know, why am I more short with, you know, my spouse, or, you know, I have other clinicians that work with me, like, why am I shorter with them or not as patient? And if that is
Mm.
the case, then I need to do what I need to do to make sure I am
To
well,
course correct. Yeah.
right, to then be able to do what it is that I'm called to do.
Mhm.
And so, um, you're the expert of your child. You're going to make mistakes.
Mhm.
And when those mistakes happen, that is an opportunity to check in with yourself
Mhm.
and just try again. Like, it's
Yeah.
okay. Like, kids are so resilient. Even if you
They
mess
really
up,
are.
if you mess up, like, it's okay.
I know, right? It's thank goodness they're not, they're not like adults in that sense. Because we know
Yeah,
how to hold some grudges and harbor some
yeah,
be like,
absolutely.
remember when.
Yes, yes, kids are so resilient. And you know, on a neurobiological level, the thing is that when we create new healthy experiences and we consistently offer that, even if there are sprinkles of mistakes, but when we have a consistency in healthy experiences, the brain creates new neural pathways in the brain. And so when we create new
Mm,
neural pathways, it changes the perception of how we view things around us.
wow,
And
that's
with children,
so good.
yeah, yeah, and with
So good.
children, you know, that ability is even stronger because their brains are still developing.
Developing. Oh, that's
Yeah,
so good. And so that is so enlightening and refreshing because I know sometimes, especially, not trying to call out my moms here, but especially us as moms, we will be like, oh my God, I just ruined my child's life. Like it'll be something, and we know that, like you said, we might have just been having a bad day.
yeah,
We're stressed to the max, and so maybe we snapped or barked a little bit harder than we would usually, or we were out of character, and we think that has like completely ruined our kid.
mhm,
And while no, it doesn't feel good, what you're sharing is that will not be like, that's not going to be something that they're like, oh my God, my mom used to always yell at me, so like that. Like, that's going to be replaced with the good memories, because of course you're going to come back, you're going to course correct, you're going to
right,
realize, okay,
that's right.
that was out of character for me, or I need to de-stress and come back and try it again.
That's right.
But they're gonna remember the times that you loved on them. They're gonna remember the times that you were there for them, that you
Mhm,
heard them, that you
mhm,
you you know that you were loving with them. And so I just think that's huge to acknowledge that, because I believe that a lot of guilt
mhm.
is sometimes associated with all the things that we think we did wrong, instead of really paying attention to all the things that we have done right.
Yep, yep, absolutely. Mom guilt is real. It's
Oof.
so real. It's so real. I'm experiencing right now because my daughter is with my mother-in-law and I'm
Oh,
working. That
oh,
means that when I'm not working, like, I am so present for her and
yeah.
I look forward to it. She looks forward to it. But in response to what you had shared about like making mistakes, it's okay to as well to acknowledge your mistakes to your children if they're old enough to understand, and to
Right.
apologize, like, I messed up, like,
Yeah.
I snapped at you, and allow them to experience that, because we're not perfect,
Perfect. Right.
and I think it's important for kids to recognize that
Hmm.
now,
Yes, yes. And it
that's important.
humanizes, like
Yes,
like
yes,
I'm human, you're human.
yes,
We all make mistakes.
That's right.
And, you know, as long as you recognize that, then you can move forward, you know.
Right.
That's
That's right.
good. That's so good. Well, I can't believe I'm looking at the time. I'm like, is it really? I'm like, I can't believe, and I know I say that every week, but these conversations, you know, they're so meaty and they're so needed right now. And so the time just flies, but this was so good. And I know some of my moms out there, I know they're going to listen to this. If they haven't already, they're going to listen to this and be like, oh my gosh, this is what I needed to hear. This is what I needed to know. This affirms some of the ways in which I've been feeling, because we all have those moments. We all, as parents, have those moments where we're just like, okay, I just need to hear it from somebody else. Even though I know that this is what it is, I need to hear it from somebody else, you know, and a professional at that just makes you feel like you're able to take that deep breath, like, phew, okay, we're going to be okay.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you for this so much, Kristian. And let them know, I know you know, have some things you want to share that the audience will be able to take advantage of, but also let them know that where they can find you and how they can stay connected with you too.
Yeah, sure. So my website is www.resilientchildtherapy.com. We are accepting clients right now, virtual and in person, but you must, if you're going to do virtual, you must be either in Maryland or Virginia.
Okay.
But if not therapy, if you just want to consult, we can do consultation, and you can be anywhere in the world for us to be able to do some consultation. On Instagram, I am Kristian.lcswc, and then I also have my practice also has a Instagram and Facebook, which is Resilient Child Therapy. So you can find me there. We'd love for you to be a part of our newsletter so you can stay up to date on some of the services that we offer that do include some virtual offerings. So even if you're not in the Maryland, DC area, we can still provide you with resources and support. And then I wanted to offer, can I share the special offer?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So also wanted to gift listeners
all the things right now.
all the things. And so within my practice, we also offer yoga therapy along with other wellness services as well. And so we have a virtual restorative yoga for parents and caregivers that we have every month. And so we actually have a workshop happening tonight at 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern. Wow. Yes, you should join us.
I know. I'm like, I might have to.
It's hopefully after the kids go to bed, or you can put them to bed and then you can join us. Yeah. And so if you are listening, you are able to get $5 off on our class for tonight. You'll just need to use the coupon code Living Out Loud.
Living Out Loud. Yes. Living Out Loud.
Yes, Living Out Loud in the coupon code section, so you can get $5 off on the class. And
I love that. And you said this is something you guys do monthly?
Yes, we do it monthly. I have an in-house yoga therapist that does virtual. She provides virtual yoga workshops on a monthly basis. And, you know, our most popular yoga therapy class is the restorative yoga for parents and caregivers.
I'm sure. That's why I'm like, I may not be able to make it tonight, but I'm like, hold on, if you do this monthly, do you guys already have a date for October?
We're gonna be doing something a little special in October. Okay. So around race-based stress and trauma. So stay tuned for that.
Even better. Oh my God.
So I haven't shared, this is my first time sharing that, but we are working on something really exciting in regard to that, because I have a lot of we have a lot of parents that are just experiencing, and just children too, but parents who are just nervous about like this race-related stuff and how that relates to their kids who, you know, are out here in the world, and you know, what does this mean? And so the offerings that I provide within my practice are all intentional, and they come from a space of just being very in tune to what our community needs, particularly the African American community. So I always tapped into that.
That's so good. Well, I definitely want to find out more information, then I'll share out with you guys too. But this is so good. Thank you for the work that you are doing. It is so needed. Like I told you earlier, even though I know it's particularly needed right now in this season, I believe that it is something that is needed overall in life in general. There's nothing wrong with wanting to have that expert opinion about the things that are going on and somebody to be able to talk that through and out with. So I think this is just my hope and desire is that, people this continues to be normalized, therapy, because I do believe that it is and should be a part of your normal life, your normal routine, So thank you so much, Kristian. And thank you guys for tuning in again this week. I hope that this was helpful to you. I hope that you grab some nuggets from it. I hope that you will go back and re-listen to it. It'll be available for you for the replay on the YouTube channel. So make sure you head over to YouTube and subscribe at the Eventful Life if you haven't already. And then I just want to remind you guys that this week actually wraps up our back to school series that we've been doing for the month of September. So we're closing that out, and then we'll be back in October to talk about COVID and the pandemic and how it is shaping your business. So we're going to jump into topics that are business related. So I hope that you will continue to join us as I bring you, I always bring out dynamic women. So as I bring you more dynamic women who are going to just talk about the impact that it's had on their business, lessons learned through this experience on their business, and how they're changing, shifting, all those good things. So again, guys, remember, you can have it all, but it is on your terms and your time, okay? See you again next week, and I hope you guys have a wonderful and blessed rest of the week. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you for having me.